dobry Państwu, witam Państwa po kolejnym seansie 60. jubileuszowego krakowskiego festiwalu filmowego. I no właśnie, szczególnego nie tylko dlatego, że jubileuszowy, ale i tak dyskutujemy, rozmawiamy, przeżywamy, zastanawiamy się nad współczesnością. And I'm very happy to welcome, well, here in this virtual room, the director of the film Dreams from the Outback. Jannik, could you introduce yourself?
Yes, hello, my name is Jannik Splidsboel and I am a Danish filmmaker, and I am the director of Dreams from the Outback, which in Polish is, I don't know, actually.
Which in Polish is, I'll tell you in a moment, but maybe I'll start because, well, the section in which the film is presented is called Focus on Denmark. But you actually take us in a very different journey, not to Denmark, but to Australia. I'm wondering what brought you there?
Well, I always wanted to explore the Aboriginal culture. It's one of the oldest people in the world, and it's sort of an ongoing conflict, which is kind of forgotten. You know, I mean, they were the ones who lived in Australia before everyone else came. But now there are only 3% of the whole population is Aboriginal. So I was interested in many ways, different ways to go and visit a couple of these communities. And in the end, it turned out to become a film.
And it seems to me that it's a very good time to do so, because, well, for example, at the Oscar ceremony, Taika Waititi reminded people about the indigenous people. The same, he reminded that Los Angeles was built on territories which were owned by Native Americans. So I think now with all the movements, all the equal right movements, somehow people are reminded about indigenous people all around the world.
Well, I think it's history repeating. You know, it's sadly I mean, there's always something going on somewhere, and we tend to forget because now everything is developing so fast, and there's so new medias, there are new stories the whole time, and I think if we forget what happened to Native Americans, to Aboriginal people, to also to the people in Greenland. I'm from Denmark, so we have a problem there, and a huge responsibility as well. I think if we forget what happened to them, then we will also soon forget what is happening now to the people in Syria and the Kurds and other places. And I believe that it's important that these stories, they will be told. So yeah, it's sadly always a good moment to make a film like this.
Well, because in a way those are two different crimes. One crime which happened in Australia years ago. In a way, the indigenous people were treated then, but also the years of silence, the years of their stories not being told.
Well, I think it is still ongoing, just in another way. It's sort of, I think what these different governments do, also like in the US and of course in Australia, is that they buy the silence of these people. They go, well, we give you this, we give you that, so don't come to us and complain. And I'm like, well, but that's, that might not be enough, and you can't just give someone some money and then at the same time ask this person to forget about his history, forget about his culture, forget about what had happened. I mean, there's a collective memory, which that's one of the things I sensed when I was there, that there's a collective memory, there's a lot of hurting, and that's not gonna go away because you give some money. So it's a long process.
Mm-hmm. Because, for example, your film comes after Nightingale by Jennifer Kent, extremely strong film, but historical film. and you are portraying people living there nowadays. I'm wondering what kind of place Halls Creek is now, because as I read, that's the biggest city in the area, which is very unpopulated around.
It's very unpopulated. It's one of those areas in Australia that is dominantly Aboriginal, and there are quite a lot of well, there are quite a few communities. You know, they're quite distant. You know, it's from Halls Creek to Turkey Creek, you would Warman as it's called as well. You would, it's 300 kilometers, and that's the nearest town. So it's very isolated. I had a sense of that I think it's very hard to live there in many ways. It's isolated. There's sort of a lot of infights going on as well, which has nothing to do, I guess, with the quote white Australian. But there used to be tribes, and that people used to be nomads. So suddenly, they live together in these communities where there's absolutely nothing to do. Is that it proved to be quite difficult to many of them. I mean, they don't do a lot. I mean, some of them have jobs, but many they have nothing to get up to in the morning.
That was exactly the question I had, because watching your film, I was still thinking, what do they do for a living? How do they earn a living? Because
well, I mean, some work, of course, but I mean, what happened when they became citizens in back in the 60s? They were actually, I mean, before that, they were kind of kept as some sort of slaves, where they worked, they worked for food and they worked for accommodations and stuff. And then when they were suddenly from one day to another, they became legal citizens. Mm-hmm. They should, of course, be paid for what they did. But, the farmers and so on, they started, well, we can't feed all these people, yeah, we feed them, but we can't get the money. So the government stepped in and started, paying them. So in a way, they started getting paid for being who they are, and that has somehow backlashed, as I talked about before. It's sort of if you buy, if you have a bad conscience, but you try to buy a clean one by paying. So there's so they have, I mean, there is quite a lot of privileges, like you don't pay for school, you have free university, you don't pay for dentist, you don't pay for doctor, but at the same time, you place people in a situation where there's nothing to do. So, and that's where, as you see in Australia, as you see in Greenland, as you see in the US, that's where also the heavy drinking comes in, because what do you do every day if you have nothing to get up to in the morning?
Yes, and I was touched by the sentence that one of your characters says, that with age, with maturity, he started to pay attention to his roots. And this seems to me very universal, but at the same time, it's very difficult in his situation when actually there's many tribes and you don't really know what those roots really are and what do they mean nowadays.
But also, I think you're referring to Gabriel and Peter, the first story in the film. Yeah, I mean, they really try to sort of bring back history, bring back culture, bring back the pride of what they used to be and what they used to stand for, and they felt quite alone. I mean, and that's what I witnessed as well. People couldn't be bothered. That oh, why do I want to do this? And there's also another thing. Quite a lot of the people in these communities, the inhabitants in the communities, they only wanted to do something for money. and that's what Gabriel and Peter, they were very much against. It's like, you know, we're not circus artists, you know, we should do this because this is what we do. But many people were like, hey, I'm not going to go and dance for anyone if I don't get $100. So there's something in, you know, so there's some, you know, some intern fighting as well about what's important to keep and what's not. And I think, you know, the last generation and maybe also the present generation is kind of sort of confused about who am I? Am I Australian? Am I Aboriginal? But if I'm Aboriginal, then why don't I know anything about my roots? And the older ones, they don't want to tell them, you know, all the secrets, all the mysteries, all the history, because they feel that the young ones, they don't deserve to know. So in the end, you have this culture that has never been written down that will slowly but surely disappear.
Especially as that's what you show, and that's what's the problem, I think, in also different countries and different cultures, like we see it in cinema of different countries of South America, that suddenly those people who are frequently excluded financially, for example, they start to earn on tourism, and suddenly you don't know if that's, you know, the real life culture or kind of folklore circus.
Yes, but also, I mean, you know, I mean, I also have to say that my film only shows part of, you know, all the problems, and there are different problems. There are also problems that are not inflicted by society, but are inflicted by themselves. So, you know, because they, as I said before, they're intern fighting. There are obviously also, you know, there are Aboriginal people in Australia doing very well, obviously, you know, but they kind of don't live in that area, and if you, as an Aboriginal person, go somewhere else, many times you suffer because they have a very specific relationship with the country, with the land where they come from as well. So there are so many levels of how this, I mean, you know, of problems of adhering to, you know, today's life. That, I mean, I could only tell some of them, and also I wanted to. It's very delicate to make a film like this because I am obviously not Aboriginal. So my first thing was, who wants to be in this film, and what do you want the film to tell? You know, so I kind of, you know, I said, this film is for you guys. If you want to be in the film, this will be your voice. And that was very important for me.
So they wanted to tell their stories, yes?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in the beginning, they were a bit reluctant and, you know, who's this white guy? And then they found out that I was not from Australia, but I was from, you know, overseas. And that helped a lot, actually. And then we were back and forth like 4 times. And every time they kind of opened up and we had more people sort of coming up to us. I mean, there were also people that absolutely disliked us from the beginning. And, you know, they just didn't want us there. So, well, you know, then we didn't film them, of course.
Nowadays, it will be important that you're from Denmark, not from Sweden, as Sweden became the symbol of coronavirus.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know, I mean, there's always something new, so yeah. But I mean, you know, I wouldn't, I mean, today I would probably not even go to Australia to film.
That's true, because you can cross the
I mean, I can't even go to the festival in Krakow next weekend, so, you know.
That's true, that suddenly the sense of the border became very real. Yes, but I'm wondering.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
No, sorry, I didn't hear.
Yes, because I'm saying that because they were eager also, because I heard they were eager to tell their stories, in which I heard 2 things. One is this question about their culture, how to preserve it, how to become true to themselves. But second one is this voice of despair about the region, about Kimberley. Well, this suicide rate, it's enormous. I mean, it's something very tragic.
Yeah, yes, it is. It's probably the highest rate in the world. It's Well, I mean, you know, I have very mixed feelings about this film, because I started out with the film because I wanted to tell a culture that is disappearing, and which I find very fascinating. Then I found out that the real people of Australia, that, you know, that they are still suffering. I mean, you know, and they are disappearing. I mean, it will be impossible, you know. I mean, only 3% left. So, I mean, if you imagine 100 years, you know, there will be no one left. So the film that I actually thought I wanted, you know, and that's what I love about documentary, you know, it's very organic. You start out here and then you end over there. So it became maybe more social than I actually thought it would be, you know, from the beginning. But that was also because this is what the characters wanted to be, you know, and I was like, yes, fine. The suicide is as one everywhere I have shown the film at festivals. There have been Australians among the audience, and every time they have said the same thing: this is the best kept secret in Australia, and that's quite interesting. That it's nothing, you don't talk about it, and it's true that the film has not been seen in Australia yet. You know, the festivals have said no. We have this policy that we don't show films about native indigenous people if the films have not been made by indigenous people themselves. And I'm like, well, that's a very good idea, but if there aren't so many filmmakers yet, then maybe it's better that you know, that we tell these stories with the people, that we don't tell the stories at all. So the suicide rates are kind of not, it's not a well-known fact, strangely enough, but it is a very, very high rate. It's not, if not the world's highest per capita. And the reason is, as I told you before, it's because people have nothing to wake up to in the morning. They drink, they do drugs, they fight, they just wait for the days to go by, basically. And plus there's the whole collective hurting and memory that has been surpassed from one generation to another one. And that is not, I mean, I don't see it's not likely to disappear, you know.
Yes, because you can see that one generation inherits problems of previous one, like the son who hears from his father, you know, I have a lot of enemies there, for example.
Exactly. It's like, you know, I mean, he just arrives from a completely other, you know, reality, and then suddenly he's like, well, you have to be careful about this, you have to be careful about that, you know, and your dad has enemies, don't go to that town, don't do this, you know, and that's why he's having, you know, his breakdown, of course.
Isn't it very striking that well, first of all, that suicide and suicide of close ones is part of everyday experience, but also there was this sentence, I think Felicity said it, that I'm looking for it, but well, generally that it's not culture anymore, it's all drugs and alcohol.
Yes, well, that's what they, I mean Felicity has been fighting, you know, with that as well, so for years. That's what they're fighting. I mean, but you know, but there is a reason why someone drinks, or there's a reason why someone, you know, do drugs. I mean, you don't just wake up and then you start being an alcoholic, you know. So my film is also about why, how come, you know. And again, if you don't have a history, if you don't have a culture, if you don't have all this, and you have all this hurting, and you have no one to help you, you know, sort all this out. Because everyone around you, they are, you know, as hurt and in the same condition as you, then, you know, you will always be in the same sort of circle.
And one feeling which is, I think, even more harsh in your film, that in every protagonist you can feel this sense of sense of powerlessness. I mean, that they feel that they have absolutely no power to change anything in their lives and in surroundings and in environment.
Well, my goal was to make the film with people who actually wanted to, they did make an effort, and you're absolutely right, they make an effort, and then they just, meet this door that is just slammed upon them, it's like, oh, this door is locked, oh, this door is locked too. But that was, I really wanted to, I went looking for people who had a project. I want to do this for my community. This is important for me and my community. This is important for my family. But it is very, very difficult because it's like you cannot take it out of Halls Creek or the other community. It's like you could take it to there, and then there's nothing. Then you just have the desert basically. That's the feeling I got, and I think that's the feeling they sort of they're living with as well.
Also, there's this image when at the very end of the film, the representative of young generation goes to the club, and suddenly I noticed that it's the first image from more urban environment, from place which I associate, with modern urban life. So I'm wondering, what is, for example, among young generation, what is their attitude towards exactly this modern urban culture, this Australia, which they know that exists?
Well, they use smartphones and tablets and they listen to the same music as all the other young kids. So, and there was a critic who wrote that the film the film ends happily, or not happily, but it sort of ends with hope, and that's what we wanted to. That was very important to us, and because maybe the young generation will be able to sort of fix the gap between the history and the future. At least that's one of the ideas we got while when we were there and when we were filming Billy and his brother. But again, if the older ones, they don't want to let you in on the secrets, on the culture, on what it is to be an Aboriginal and why it is so important, to have that knowledge, then it will be very difficult. And in the end, I think the young generation, they will just float around being a nobody, So it's very important, I think, that they find back, that they sort of they stay in the present, in the now, but at the same time they go back and try to find the roots to where they came from, and then use what is usable today. Because I'm not, as someone told me, it's not like everything that was Aboriginal in the days is good today. I said, no, of course not. But still, I think it's, I think it's important to know where we all come from.
And also, this culture wasn't able to evolve naturally as any other culture,
exactly, because it was like, there was like just a, there was like a cut, and it was like, now you're not allowed to do anything more. I mean, they even tried to breed out the race, So there have been all kinds of atrocities have been going on.
And I'm wondering about attitude of the other part of Australia. It's called White Australia, towards Aborigines, because there is a scene when young guy says, "Well, you can see my skin is different, and everyone knows at the first sight who I am."
Mm. Well, there aren't too many whites. There aren't too many white Australians in the film. There's only one, actually, because he's married to Felicity. So I didn't go look. I didn't go look for them. Like, oh, let us find some white Australians. Some of them who work in Halls Creek, for instance, as tutors, they go there and they work there for 2 years, and then they go somewhere else. They're double paid. They don't pay tax. So there's a lot of sort of they didn't. No one wanted to be in the film. My feeling is also that you know, that my characters, if I can say so, they were also not too happy to. You know, I mean, this was a film. This was about a film about them and their film. The film has been criticized by, funnily enough, a couple of white Australians about, you know, the lack of white Australians in the film. And I was like, well, you guys, you're white, and you're writing about the film, which is not about white Australians. So maybe you shouldn't write about that. I don't know. It's complicated.
I want to say that there were quite a lot of films about white Australians.
Exactly.
There's not the problem as lack of films about white Australians.
Oh, I mean, also, you know, I mean, we were there for a certain period of time, and we can know the film so much. Also because it was like unbelievable hot every day. So, you know, so like from noon till 5 or something. I mean, there's absolutely nothing going on. You know, everyone's just trying to survive. So we had so we filmed in the morning, and then we filmed again in the late afternoon and in the evening. That's basically what we could do. So it's not sort of a normal quote documentary where you just film, you know, every day for 14 hours and you just film whatever happens. This is like, you know, we kind of needed to know what would happen every day in order to prepare it.
And have your protagonists seen the film?
Yes, they have seen. I mean, I showed them scenes every time I came back, and two of them have seen the whole film, the link. Wi-Fi is not the best thing in in that area. Actually, it kind of doesn't work, and plus they keep changing the phone numbers and emails and stuff. But the whole plan is that I go back. I was actually going to go back, but you know, then this virus came about. So I will go back later, and then I will show to the whole community. But the characters have seen the film. Yes.
Because it seems quite incredible to me that they are so conscious. I mean, they're telling their stories which are harsh, which are difficult, which are, well, I can imagine a lot of people wouldn't be so eager to speak in that, as I believe, sincere way about their hardest moments, and especially if they are not in a good place right now.
Well, they felt relieved, actually, you know, that someone from outside would come and ask them, how are you? You know, how's your life? Are you happy? Are you not? What's, you know, and, you know, we were generally interested in them, you know. I don't, and this is why I think it's important that someone from, you know, from outside sometimes come in and, you know, maybe in collaboration with someone from the place. But I mean, I think it's important that someone, you know, sometimes, you know, come from outside and say, hey, what is this? Why is this? You know? So I think that's why they let me in, and also because we really didn't film anything that we weren't allowed to film. You know, so they trusted us, you know, and there were quite a lot of times where they said, this is not, you cannot film this, you know. Also there were a lot of holy spots, secret places, and there was a neighborhood where we were not allowed to film, and then slowly maybe they would let us anyway. A couple of neighborhoods. I mean, my director photographer, he was desperate because there was one specific neighborhood where he wanted to film, but there was absolutely no go. We never found out why, but we just couldn't go there. And we completely, you know, we respected all this. So I think it was a matter of trust as well, and also we didn't pay. You know, I mean, we didn't say, yeah, of course, yeah, I'll give you $100 if you tell me your story. I was like, no, I want more. You know, and I can't pay you, but so in the end, it became a collaboration.
Mhm. So in a way, you became the tool for them to tell their stories.
Yes, yeah. I think it is their film as well, absolutely. And I also tried in very little, very little scenes, sort of just, you know, like you hear my questions a couple of times, you know, and one of them is asking me something, and also the music that I added, you know, on the drone shots and stuff was like, okay, I am actually a director from outside, and I'm here, but I'm not part of this, you know, and that was important to me as well. That I don't go there and then I'm like, oh, you know, I pretend that I'm from here, because obviously I'm not.
You feel that those people are your guides there, and they are just, you know, presenting.
Exactly. They were. I mean, they were very happy to, you know, to take me around and to show me, and yeah, both the good places and the bad places.
And finally, that's true that in the end you can feel hope, and I guess hope is exactly what also the people you portray need so much.
Yes, I mean, you know, when we edited the film, it was, the film was a bit difficult to edit because we were there, like, we went there 4 times, but over 3 years, 2 or 2.5 years, something. And so, you know, some people changed, some people disappeared, and then we had to start all over, and you know, but and in the end, I was like, okay, you know, we have the past, we have the present, and we have the future, and so that's how we tell the film as well, the stories.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I can only hope for, we all can only hope for the future, not only of Australia, but also a future after all this we're stuck in right now.
Exactly. Yeah. We need some hope, definitely.
Oh, absolutely. Okay, so thank you so much, and thank you for the phone. And I hope someday we'll see you in Krakow or.
Oh yeah. By all means, you know, I was really looking forward. So next time, absolutely. Yes.
I hope so. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.